Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners, and other staff. Welcome to the Historic Preservation Commission meeting of March 8th, 2023. It is 6:01 p.m., and I will call the meeting to order. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, and it looks like we've got a few items on the agenda for this evening. Why don't we go ahead and do a roll call, if you would. Dr. Lechner, please.
Sure, happy to. Vice Chair Fackler?
Here.
Commissioner Garrity? Here. Okay. Commissioner Garrison? Commissioner Gilbert? Commissioner Larson?
Here.
Commissioner Montero? Here. Commissioner Kuroka? Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Chair Woodson?
Here.
All right, we have 6 commission members present, so that is a quorum.
Excellent, thank you, Dr. Lechner. All right, moving on then to agenda item number 1, call to audience, persons wishing to address the commission. Do we have anyone in the audience today or online to do so? No cards today? All right. All right. Moving on to number 2, approval of the meeting minutes from February 8th. Commissioners, you should have a copy of the meeting minutes, so if you have any comments or edits, would you please go ahead and let us know. Can you turn on your mic? You press the person face.
Sorry. I just noticed that access should be assess on page 4, paragraph 1, last sentence.
Thank you. Any other edits or comments? Hearing none, I'll only add that Dr. Lechner, I appreciate you doing an excellent job of capturing the discussion on the Gonzalez Martinez property. I know that was kind of an extended discussion last week or last month. And as far
Well,
as
you can give credit to Ms. Daniels because she wrote the minutes. I merely edited them. So.
Very well, good. Well, I appreciate the effort there. That's I think it captures the discussion pretty well.
I agree.
All right. Hearing no further edits or comments, I guess we'll take a vote to approve.
Or I think we need to advance a motion first.
Oh, yes. Can we have a motion first?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from, what was it, February 8th?
As amended or as proposed to be amended?
Yes, motion to approve the February 8th minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. And take a vote, please.
Okay. Vice Chair Fackler?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrity?
Aye.
Commissioner Larson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montero?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
And Chair Woodson?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 6-0.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Agenda item 3, approval of agenda. Unless there's any suggestions for modification, I will just move to approve the agenda as presented. All right, very well. Let's move on to agenda item 4. Just moving right along here for update on venue projects and Sunbelt Holdings redevelopment plans for the Hayden Flour Mill and Silos located at 119 South Mill Avenue. Presenter is Lorenzo Perez and I believe Maria Lochner. Yes?
Yes.
Greetings.
Hello. We're very happy to be here. And we're also here with Heidi Kimball from Sunbelt Holdings. So we got the whole team so we can answer questions for you. So we thought that I could quickly go over some of the where we are with the development agreement, and then Lorenzo would be able to speak more specifically to the project itself and what's been going on since last time we talked to you. Where's the clicker? Oh, sorry. Next slide, please. Actually, can you go to the next slide because he'll come back to that. Yeah. Okay. So we have identified a variety of primary business terms, and they are related to the creation of an urban park for the whole site of where the flour mill is. And the goal of doing that is to make sure it stays in the public domain into perpetuity. The city will retain access to the site and the land, will be the owner of the land, and we will provide a long-term lease to Sunbelt and Venue. And right now we're looking at a 60-year lease with some extensions possible. That's a common thing that we use on other projects where the city retains ownership. I think the last time we were here, we described how the buildings are full of stuff, lots of great things in there, equipment and all kinds of things. The city will continue to own the building contents. However, we're going to give Sunbelt Venue the right of first refusal of those contents to be used for their project. They have some ideas about artwork or creative reuse of things as part of the adaptive reuse project. And then the other items that are not of interest, we're working on a variety of other opportunities, which we haven't solidified yet, but one of those might be trying to do like maybe a call to artists to see if we can do cool art installations in the Old Town area, the downtown area. Oh, thank you. Or maybe seeing if there's interest from the community in purchasing something for some kind of use. So we'll come back with more information about that once we have it. But we're looking at different things that we can do with the stuff that's in there and being creative with it. So again, I believe we mentioned earlier that there will be no on-site parking at this project. Instead, we'll have a variety of parking agreements with surrounding areas, such as at Hayden Ferry Lakeside. And then, of course, as you know, the streetcar has a stop right there, and the light rail has a stop across the street. And then this project will also be subject to the DTA and streetcar assessments. So it will function the same way as all the other downtown projects function. Okay. So for the development concepts, this is the same view that you saw the last time we were here. We're looking for the restoration of the history of the mill, the silos, and the butte. Preservation first for adaptive reuse is the focus that we're looking at. The new buildings, as you can see in this picture, are subordinate. They're not going to overpower. Their goal is to just provide further amenities for the overall site and be secondary in nature. There will be lighting and art elements for storytelling and cultural activation. And another big part of this project is the rehabilitation of the trailhead. The commitment that Sunbelt and Venue is looking to make is that they will pursue National Registry listing and historic tax credits on this site. And Lorenzo will be able to speak more as to what's been progress that's been made in that regards so far. They're also looking to maintain all of the property. The city will budget for the park portion, but we're looking to have the developer be the ones that maintain it and provide everything that's necessary to keep it up. So in terms of landscaping and cleaning and things of that nature. There will be facade and conservation easements on the historic buildings that will also go into perpetuity. And we have been meeting various times with SRP MIC, and we're looking to develop an MOU with them that will establish a framework on how we can work together, how we communicate, how we join on future activities and activation. And Lorenzo can speak to more about that as well. So the timeline, this is a very broad timeline. We have not gone to council yet for the development agreement. We have gone in executive session and presented these same deal points that you're seeing today. So we're hoping that in the late spring, we'll have a development agreement approved. Based on that timeline, we're looking at 3 rough phases for this project. The first phase is going to be about the site cleanup, inventory of the equipment, and the rehabilitation of the trailhead. And that's going to take some time to accomplish. I'm happy to report that we did do a phase 1 already. I was able to get a phase 1 environmental grant from the Brownfields Coalition through the Rio Reimagined, and that was completed last week, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. And so we're looking at a phase 2 to be done soon to do lead testing, asbestos testing, that kind of thing. The phase 2 of the project will be the historic preservation phase. So, and the activation. So we have engaged with SHPO and the National Park Service, and Lorenzo will speak to you more about that. But that's a big part of that historic preservation. So once we clean up the site, then we're going to do the work on the preservation. And then phase 3 will be the development of the outbuildings and the tenanting of the site. So as you know, the mill and the silos, we're looking to do something with them that's an adaptive reuse through the preservation. The outbuildings will be adding more amenities to the overall site, but we're looking to do it in piecemeal so that we can make sure we're meeting with the community needs, we're doing things in the right order, and we're activating the site as soon as possible. And the preservation, the cleanup and the preservation really help to do that. So with that, I'm not going to go to questions. We're going to go back to your brochure.
Great.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. This is a one sheet I think we put together for the Hayden Ferry Days. Thank you for that. You bet. You bet. Sort of just a dashboard view. I just want to point out a few things here, just again, to reiterate what Maria said. We maintain our commitment to the 1918 mill and the 50 silos as the stars of the campus. I think that's resonated across all the outreach we've done. And we're going to try to take as light a touch and sensitive approach to the site. We did develop a little bit further massing beyond the golden boxes there. We're spending more time on property in the building and around it. Got to go up into 100 Mill recently for a tour. And one thing that's very apparent is this is going to require 5-sided architecture, meaning all 4 sides and the roofs, because you have a lot of buildings looking down. When you're on the butte, you're looking down. So I think the massing and context, while it's not really attempting to be architectural, it's just sort of expressing the idea that we need to be sensitive to what we're looking down on and make sure that we still are maintaining. I think we're sort of leaning in just 1 to 2 story structures of these outbuildings. And, we had the opportunity to walk the site with National Park Service, which is such a rare opportunity to meet with our reviewer. Angela Shear came out, and we were one of many properties they took around the state, but we walked it with SHPO and her, and to be able to walk it one-on-one with your reviewer was unbelievable. It was like a dream. And at the end of it, she was pretty excited. She said, this was really helpful to walk through it, to understand its story, to understand the topography and the context of the whole relationship, that it's not just the 1918 mill, its relationship to Mill Avenue, the river, the silos, and the butte. It's a package deal. And so I think that was exciting. She did ask me about our development approach of how we are anticipating siting new structures around it. And I said, well, when you look back at history of the site, it was always anchored with the mill and the silos eventually. But through different iterations and evolutions, it was always peppered with outbuildings around it that supported it in some capacity, whether it was the old jail or just warehousing or storage or what have you. I think we even saw blacksmith and stuff. Yeah. So I said we just felt like this was more accurate and authentic development approach for the site because it was always peppered with that. So she seemed to buy off on that and said, yeah, we're going to want to look at massing, but she liked the idea of how it's framing views and stuff like that. So we've had a handful of conversations with SHPO and working closely with Zach, and it's just been wonderful. We've had a lot of times we've walked it together with people. We're getting more and more familiar with it. I think the best gift was actually passed on to us from Jeff Zimmerman of the Hayden Flour Mill Companies. Said, hey, you've got to look at this cultural resources report that Tempe got in 2008. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a 3-volume set, and it is a deep, deep dive into the history of this mill site, all the way to relationship with the indigenous communities and the Latino communities and through just the milling process in depth, because I think that was really interesting. But I think the most exciting part is that we actually have original plans of the 1918 mill hand-drawn by Lesher, Kibbe Lesher is the firm, I think. And it just answered a lot of questions for us as we had been going through the building constantly to see what was original, what was not, windows. And Angela from the National Park Service thought, that's fantastic. Because she said, have you done that? And I'm like, it's been done. And we've actually hard printed 3 binders in our office, and you get lost in it. It's so fascinating. So that's exciting. There's a lot of good information there that will really help feed us for interpretive storytelling and part of the activation piece of it, but also make sure that we're telling the right story, right? So that's been really neat. I think the other neat thing is that we've had a handful of conversations with Shane Antone from Salt River Pima, Maricopa, and I got an opportunity to have lunch with Ray Lynn and Shane way back when, and they gave great insight into how maybe we can work together and good examples. But we have set up a standing monthly meeting, and we just had a great meeting with Jacob, I believe, Butler.
Butler. Yes.
And just hearing about his thoughts from a creative perspective. And I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be a great relationship. And so we're looking forward to more of those conversations, and his ideas were fantastic. And, outside of that, from the historic preservation standpoint, we've had some early conversations about, do we renew part 1? Angela sort of cleared that up for us from National Park Service. She said, you know what, let's start from scratch. I don't really care about what the other developer did, and this is a new vision. Why don't we start from scratch? And so that's great. Trying to get clarity, do we submit a new part 1? That's kind of the direction we were leaning, but now talking to Bill over at SHPO is like, hey, why don't we just go for the nomination? So I've only worked with projects that were already on the register, so I've got to get up to speed on the process for the nomination. So we're trying to get together, but they've been wonderful. They're excited, equally as excited about working with us, and I think us and the Tempe Historic Preservation Office, we're going to be a good collaborative team on this. So I think that's the next step, is mapping out our strategy around that. We'd like to get that process started. And then on a macro level is just getting our heads around this beast, right? It's definitely going to, I was telling Heidi that it's going to be a multi-course meal, and we're just going to have to bite it, a bite at a time, and we're going to work through phases of like you do a meal. But I think starting first with clearing out the building, understanding it, being sensitive about that. We've been working with some specialty contractors about how do we remove the equipment sensitively, how far do we take it? And I think the approach with that is just peeling the onion, right? We were going to be very hands-on and make sure we don't take too much out, and we want to take enough out so the spaces are functional inside. We have a good assessment of its safety. And then eventually we're going to be bringing structural engineers in there too to assess things. I think the neatest thing about the drawing set that we got from 1918 is a whole sheet of structural drawings of the reinforcing and beam sections, and that's really helpful. We were able to pass it on to the shoring contractor and the structural engineer, and even though it's not as defined as you would find today, is very helpful to understand how this thing was built. What else? We're thinking long-term. I think beginning with the end in mind, we're road mapping internally, our development team, all aspects of the project, preservation, how we manage it, maintain it, how we structure ourselves today for that. But this is a legacy project, and so we're also thinking beyond how we transfer stewardship of the facility beyond us at some point so that it passes generation to generation. And I think we have two great local models that we're looking at, and one is the Desert Botanical Garden, and one's the Phoenix Zoo, which are very similar. City of Phoenix leases the land of those organizations. They have their own 501c3 organizations with their own executive board and funding mechanisms and that. And we want to learn from both of them to see how that might overlap to this, so that the city's going to be the owner of it, but you're going to need an operating arm that keeps this thing in the community for generations. So we're thinking about that aspect. So there's not just the preservation and the development and the construction, it's the operating model. How does this thing operate and sustain over generations beyond us? And then getting a ton of interest from potential tenants in the food and beverage industry, reaching out, saying, oh my God, I'd love an opportunity to be there. I think the quality of the space, the character of it, and just what it is, the location. Yeah, so we're pretty confident we're not going to have any problem attracting great people here. It's just a matter of putting the right mix together. So we're juggling a lot of balls, as you can tell, but we're super excited. And next step is really focus on how we get the building cleaned up, how we get a design and engineering team in place as well. We want to be really intentional about that process, make sure we have the right fit of people who really understand the mission. And I mean, one of the things we want with the secondary buildings is that they're beautiful, artful, but they're not necessarily the showpiece, right?
Yeah, they're subtle.
Yeah, they're subtle, but artfully built and nice. I think I've hit on all my notes. I'm open to take any questions that there might be.
All right, thank you, Lorenzo and Maria. Appreciate the update. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions and comments, but before we start, Dr. Legner, so this is an update, so we're not voting on anything here.
Correct. Yeah, just a Q&A. Just wanted to have the opportunity for venue and economic development just to come in and kind of give you all an update before the development agreement is finalized to get your feedback.
All right, I'm going to open it up to commissioners' questions before I chime in. So commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm Commissioner Montero. This is really exciting. I'm very excited about this finally happening, and it sounds really great. At Hayden Ferry Days this weekend, lots of people were asking about this. That was the main thing that they asked our table about. I do have a question. Could you talk more about your plans for the outdoor space? You said, something about the trail, but what other plans do you have?
Yeah, I think the outdoor space is going to be an integral part of this. It's an indoor-outdoor experience. I think we've envisioned it as a series of 6 different plazas. I think if you've ever been to Desert Botanical Garden, you have different experiences as you move through it. I think that's sort of the mindset, except it's more urban in effect. And I envision having, outdoor opportunities for dining and energy, but just space, reflection space, landscape, hardscape, a lot of interpretive storytelling about the mill and the process and the history of the site, especially along the eastern portion up against the butte. Really the idea is to just revegetate that area and create little installations to tell the story of the cultural and historical significance of the site to the 4 Southern tribes. And Jacob had some really great ideas about how we might approach that. I think it should be a showpiece of how we landscape in our arid desert environment, and strategies around shading and plant palette and things like that. And I think there's opportunities there to weave in a lot the cultural significance of some of the plants to communities, but I think it's going to be a place you're going to want to spend time outside as well as indoors.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Others?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Vice Chair.
Lorenzo,
Yes.
got a 3 questions. First off, when the buildings are all rehabilitated and you open the door of the 5-story mill building, in your mind's eye, what do you see?
I think we're trying to get our head around that. Part of clearing it out is to understand what we can do. I have a good feel for it. I certainly think there's space in there for a variety of uses. I think there's some opportunities for food and beverage in there, especially in the upper floor with the opportunity to access the roof deck that's up top there because the views are phenomenal in that space. The volume of it is fantastic. It's an interesting site because you basically, the way it sort of ascends up the butte, you can go in on the ground floor and you go up to the second floor and you think you're on the second floor, but then to the east, you're actually on the ground level. So you can actually engage that terrace. So it's definitely got to be something we study in section. But originally I was thinking, well, maybe it's either an arts or arts and cultural use on the second floor, or maybe, but now I'm thinking it could be actually more food and beverage or some sort of experience, per se. So we want to use the 1918 mill. It's definitely got nice floor plates, great lighting, and good four-sided views. The building itself, we want to return to what it looked like in the plans as much as possible. We've got to work in today's world around ADA and fire safety and all that stuff. So the idea is to put the vertical circulation, tuck it behind it so that you're not seeing it on mill. And actually, if you look at the history, that's where they had a secondary grain elevator. So it'd go right where the old grain elevator was. And I think you can connect it into the mill sensitively through existing openings. So really, I think it's food and beverage, maybe some retail or some historical or arts and cultural experiences in there is the thinking now. But as we get into it, it could change.
Glad to hear those ideas. It's a large space. There's a lot of volume.
A lot of square
and
footage there.
Unless you activate it, give people destinations and multiple destinations, it could become a dead large space very quickly.
No, we want people to be moving through it and experience it at all levels. So, yeah.
Take the same mind exercise, if you will, on the silos. What do you say?
Silos are interesting. There's definitely usable spaces. If you see where the letter B is on the silos, there's a rectangular box below it on our exhibit. That actually, I think trucks drove through there. There's looks like it drops into a funnel and an underground conveyor that must have gone to the grain elevator. That space is actually big enough to house the Hayden Flour Mill's mill production. I went to their facility out and they would love to have a space here. And that's where I want to put them. And Jeff Zimmerman was pretty excited about that. And there's a vestibule inside the grain elevator at the ground floor, which is really interesting because you see some of the silos expressed inside that space. I envision that as the retail space for Hayden Flour Mills and also some storytelling opportunities because they want both. They want to be able to mill and have an educational component, but they'd also like to have a retailing element there to demonstrate, that process. So I'm excited about that idea. They seem excited about that idea. We have not had the opportunity to go up in the grain elevator. It's a large structure. There's definitely a lot of volume and space in there. We don't know yet, but I think there's opportunities probably to take advantage of some of that. And the fact that it's vertical and the superstructure's there seems to be structurally sound. It's cured concrete, and it's all cast in place, reinforced. The tubes themselves, I understand, Sunt Construction sent to me a BIM model early on. That's a 3D structural scan of it that showed it's basically like paper towel tubes glued together. And they're basically just vertical storage tanks. And I guess at the bottom of them, there's a cone and that collects, and supposedly there's a basement on the very bottom of these that they used to drain into it to an underground conveyor. I understand that basement space is functional too. I had no idea it was there, but John Southard told me before he left that he actually walked in the space and it's actually pretty sizable and pretty usable. So hopefully we'll get a chance to go in there and see there is a man lift in there, but I would not ever get on it. It's tiny and super scary, but you can look all the way up. We did fly a drone on top of the silos, and it's a lot of area. I saw an old photo of the conveyor room at the top. That's actually pretty good size space. I have a crazy idea. I would love to see it as a viewing deck. The views from up there are fantastic, and we've got a vertical structure. I mean, we probably have to build a new elevator chase to get people up, but then I've done roof decks, and they come with a whole other slew of challenges for emergency egress and stuff like that. So I think there's something we can do with it creatively that people could engage with in a way that would be educational, fun, and drive traffic and hopefully revenue, so that it's also another revenue generator to sustain the site. So that's an early thinking.
My final question dates with the history of the site.
Mhm.
The railroad used to come right into the site. And I was wondering if there was an opportunity for a locomotive and maybe a grain car.
Yeah, I love that idea. That came up in the
Yes.
Transportation
Yeah,
Commission.
commission,
They
yeah.
were talking about, telling the story of Tempe's connection to the rail and the crossing and how that played into the development of the city, economic development. And they suggested a few things. They said, that'd be great. They also suggested, like, maybe there's a fun experience on their tracks that could be fun, that's, entertaining or whatever. So I think those are definitely opportunities to explore, so that we have a presence there. But I think that would be really interesting if we could have a train, car, or something to show the scale of it. Because when you look at old photos, you see them stacked up along those tracks. And the tracks are there, and we want to make sure that they're preserved and expressed, and they're part of our sacred pieces that we don't mess with. We want to celebrate them.
The other historic element, I do not know whether it was there in 1918, but of course the flour mill originally was powered by water, and the water wheel was there.
Yeah, the turbine, it was so great to have the plans because they have a great section drawing through the turbine shaft that gives us a approximate dimension, how deep it is. I think it was like 20 feet deep. And my understanding, when I spoke with John before he left, he was under the impression that that's all still there. It's just buried. And I think there will be I think he said it was buried to protect it. So the spillway, I think you'll see we identified some sort of water feature, whether it's a real water feature or an implied water feature. The idea is to make that a key part to tell the story that it was originally a water-powered.
A water feature.
Yeah, it's right there. The mill's there because of its proximity to the river, and tell the story like, now it's a lake, but this was flowing. And I think that can lead into a really cool conversation beyond even this area with the Salt River Project and how it all ties in statewide. It can be very educational, especially for out-of-town visitors, to understand how Phoenix manages its water and why certain businesses located there, meaning Tempe is here for a reason, because the river used to flow. So I think that's a neat idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair. Good questions. Any other commissioners have questions? Anybody online there? No? Okay. Well, I have a few things I'd like to just add. And so first of all, again, thank you very much. I think, as you can kind of tell from the comments so far and before, I personally feel like most of the commission likes very much the concept and the ideas that you're moving forward with. So we're pleased to see that you're still continuing with this, and it sounds like you're getting closer on this development agreement. So, and so again, since this is all still conceptual, I mean, some of these questions I have may not be able to be answered. So a couple of nuts and bolts I'd like to ask. So the development agreement, Dr. Lechner, are you going to be reviewing this before it is executed?
Yeah, yes. I mean, they'll economic development will send it my way, and I'll make comments on it, certainly. And they've already given me the opportunity to comment on the deal points, which is kind of the first part of it, even before the development agreement is worked out. So I provided some input on those things as well. So yes, short answer, yes.
Okay.
And if I could
good.
add, I'm just sorry, Dr. Lechner was with us in executive session to present
To council?
to council,
Okay,
yes, on the deal
very
points.
good. All right, good. Yeah, I just want to make sure that that is, and it's not that there's
Absolutely.
nothing that you're not doing that's trustworthy, but when it comes to dotting i's and crossing t's, I would very
Understood.
much like to make sure that at a minimum, he is involved. And I don't know if we would have a role in that. I don't think we do, but okay, that was my first question. in terms of, well, one thing I was surprised, I actually didn't realize that none of the structures are nominated or listed on the national or the Tempe register.
No, the mill and the silos are on the Tempe register, but they're not on the national register.
They're not on the national register.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Correct.
I understand what I've learned is that you can't even put silos on a register because they're considered chattel, I guess, or they're not considered,
Oh,
people have tried.
oh, I
It's
see.
more a storage container than a building, which is really interesting, but the 1918 mill is really the only thing we can probably put on the national register and
Okay.
would be eligible for historic tax credits.
Yes, oh, for sure. I've got no doubt. So, so I'm glad to hear that that's being pursued. And I did hear you refer to a meeting with the Park Service as well as the SHPO, which is great. Again, I'd like to know, was Dr. Lechner involved with this?
Yeah, you'll see, you'll see me in one of these pictures here, so,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. There I am on the left,
There you
there I
are,
am on the
yeah.
left, the upper left.
I
just
got
to-
photo evidence,
Yeah.
yeah.
there-
Because I would like to chime in to make sure that if, at a minimum, that his office is involved. And I mean, ideally, I'd like to get notified next time you have a
Oh,
meeting
great.
with the SHPO and the Park Service on something like this. I mean, so that
Sure.
some of the people on the commission should be there. I mean, I think that's why we're here.
Yep.
So again, you know, I mean, it's been a year since you all have been here. And again, I do appreciate it, but I mean, you know, we don't want to just be like a box you check on your way to getting your project going. Because I mean, we have a lot of expertise sitting on this commission that I think you could really, you know, creatively tap into, maybe not need it.
Right.
But anyway, I just have to put that out there. Just please let us know next time you have some
great.
kind of
Good to
a
know.
meeting
Yeah.
or a site visit like that. And I personally have never actually been inside the mill or the silos either.
Oh,
So
really?
Oh, we
just
need to
throwing that
organize
out
that
there.
then.
We walk it a lot. so.
Anytime you want to go, let me know.
All right, great. And then I know you're already touching on a lot of these amenities and obviously some historical, you know, presentations of some kind. And I'm not really sure exactly if you had that defined enough yet, but I just want to also ask, is the Tempe History Museum involved in
I
any
really
of
hope
this
so.
coordination
I would
yet?
love that. I've been there 3 times. I've yet to get through it all.
Yeah.
And I hear they have quite a collection that's not even on display, if I
Yeah.
heard that correctly. So I think, I remember talking to someone there, I just said, man, this information needs to be at the mill.
Yeah.
In some format, whether it be in writing or through an app. And, you know, one of the things we do want to do with the interpretive is really bring it into the current age. And so when you're walking through, I think there's opportunity for augmented reality or virtual reality or, you know, I hear as part of that cultural report, there's some recorded interviews and for people to be able to hear what it was like to work in the mill or to build it or their families of what downtown Tempe was. So I think there's a lot of potential. I think you were talking about in the 1918 mill, I could see them having some element in that space. It was interesting that I was at what was the commission? Was it Arts and Culture?
Probably.
That really encouraged us not to be a static
Right,
museum piece
Yeah.
and to really bring it into an experience that extended beyond the walls of the structures, that when you're walking around the site, there's opportunities to learn from a shade structure or little interpretive elements. And I think that's where we were saying that the existing equipment, a lot of it's been damaged in either fires or weather, but there's a lot of parts and pieces. We definitely feel like we would be able to restore some machines to full. And I don't know how many we want to keep, but we thought instead of disposing of it, maybe it'd be fun to make it available as raw material to artists to use not only on this site, but through, I think one of the Parks Commission said,
Yeah.
well, we'd love to actually use some of that material across the city of Tempe since it comes from our founding piece. And I thought that was a good idea, so.
And if I could follow up on that, Chair Woodson,
Sure.
also, we were thinking, we have had initial conversations with the Arts and Culture Commission, which includes the director of the History Museum. And we would like to, once we start doing the inventory of the equipment, bring them in as well, because there's, again, for what the museum is doing, maybe there's a way for them to incorporate some of the items as well on the campus at the library where the museum is. We're just trying to see, get everybody involved in this process.
Yeah.
Good,
Especially to
yes.
just be creative resources.
Yeah, yeah.
I think somebody told me too that they had pulled some stuff out of the mill already and had set it aside to protect it. So I don't know if that was accurate or
no,
not. And if it is, it'd be neat to know what they did, because maybe there's
Yes,
an
yeah.
opportunity to bring something back that they have that is super interesting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I just would like to strongly encourage you to involve and Brenda, the director, and the
Brenda.
museum staff. They've got excellent
meeting
staff
just on that.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, and well, the museum itself is also quite nice. If you've never been, you should.
It's
But
great.
I really think they ought to be involved in this in my opinion, they should.
Yeah, I would
be-
love their bookstore at the mill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
great
that's
Well,
a
I
great
mean,
idea.
They got a
and
great
again, that's
little
why I'm saying,
retail.
a lot of what you're touching on sounds like good ideas, and I know it's still a concept and you're
Sure.
kind of moving forward. So I just want to make
Yeah.
sure of that. And then before I move on, Vice Chair wanted to add on to that comment if he wants to make a comment.
One of the things that was on site was a rundown tin shack on the north side of the flour mill building. Attached to it, storage shed, I don't know, but on the side of that building was a piece of artwork showing the rose flower bag
Oh, wow.
that they used to have.
Yeah.
Now, one of the past development groups that worked on this was Benton Robb. And it's my understanding that Benton Robb took that down and stored it.
Hmm.
Now, Ross Robb is readily available to staff. Be nice to find out whatever happened to that.
That'd be interesting.
If it's sitting somewhere, you're talking an art installation that's ready-made.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
But if nothing else, if you had pictures of that, and again, the museum may very well have that information, it'd be a great thing to recreate, have an artist recreate.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Okay, yeah, as Lorene mentioned, again, your handout was great for the Hayden's Ferry Days this weekend, and the three of us, plus Commissioner Kuroki, who's not here tonight, we all sat there. We had a lot of visitors, and they did ask a lot of questions. So thank you for that. That was a really nicely done brochure. We handed out a lot of those. So some of the comments that I can think of, some of the main ones that kind of stood out in my mind are from the visitors, and
Great.
there were at least 4 people who said this, and I would tend to concur, is that a lot of people really want to maintain that viewscape of not just the mill and the silos, but also the butte behind it. And there was at least one remark that, like, even right now, with all the development that's gone around, I mean, you can't see those features as much anymore as you used to be able to. And obviously, you can't do anything about the buildings that are already there. But I do feel like it's worth pointing out that, I mean, and you were talking, I liked how you were describing the kind of like, the rising up through the, the property up to the butte. So some of your plans here, you were talking about those outbuildings you're planning, and I see 6 on this plan, that they would be 1 or 2 stories. You had one a view on here that had a 3-story building on that structure right on Rio Salado and
That's
Mill.
that older one.
So,
Oh, yeah, we have knocked it down in the upper stories now. We feel
Yes.
like we should probably keep it to 2.
And this was from the proposal that they submitted a year ago. I didn't have the more recent ones. Yeah.
And the one sheet, you'll see that same building is now 2 stories.
Right, yeah.
okay,
yeah.
great. Yeah, I just would like, when I saw that, it kind of, I wanted to make sure I
The
pointed that
the
out.
more we spend time out, I like walking around the site to just get a sense of what's appropriate, what's not going to be visually obtrusive to it. And then I think one thing that came up consistently in our other outreach with other commissions was, a strong encouragement to step away from reflective glass buildings because people are like, this should be more authentic to the material palette of what would have been on this site. We couldn't agree more.
Okay,
But I think
great.
attention to transparency and materiality will help to downplay some of the massing and stuff. You can be able to look through spatial layering, things like that. So once we get into design, I think you start with your massing and scale. And really, these buildings have been placed from a lot of time on that site, walking around. And the intention of them is to define outdoor spaces and frame views, prominent views. So I think what you'll see is it's going to bring into focus more just amazing views of looking up the butte and how you interact with that, as a pedestrian as you move through there, for sure.
Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I remember that was some of the comments and that
Sure,
I
thank you.
agreed with. And one other thing I was just curious about is, can you talk a little bit about, so these new outbuildings that are going to be built, and what are they going to be used for, and what are your ideas for that, or the
On our
city's
s-
ideas?
There's it's hard, you can't read it, but on to the lower right is a schedule of potential uses. And I think it's going to be strong food and beverage of all approachable from small operators to established restaurateurs. I think we heard loud and clear from people, it's got to be for all citizens. And so it's got to be approachable for no matter what your socioeconomic. It should be multicultural. And then we also heard that there's a desire to elevate the food offering near Mill Avenue into something that's, more refined and less sports college bar. So I think we envision the ground planes being a lot of indoor-outdoor dining cafes, from stuff that if you're just out hiking and trail, you want to pop in and grab a juice, or a fruit bar, that's available. Or if you want to have actually a nice sit-down dinner and look up at the butte, or look at this beautifully lit, animated mill site, or be on a roof structure. So when we talked about five-sided architecture, we want to be intentional about activating rooftops too. I think that's an interesting opportunity I think it's neat when we get on the on the mill, when you're on that upper floor, on the third story, fourth story, and you're dwarfed still by the silos. And then you look down at the river in Phoenix, and then you look straight across at people who are eye level with you that are coming down the butte. It's such an interesting experience, I think. That will be something that will make this place really interesting. So I think, what else do we have here? Hospitality, maybe some retail services things. I think there's arts and culture. I think there's some educational elements, maybe some, the spirit of Charles T. Hayden was his enterprising nature and entrepreneurship and bringing people together through enterprise and community. So I think there's opportunities maybe for some creative office, maybe around entrepreneurship. And this area, if you don't know, from a real estate perspective, is the hottest Class A, most expensive Class A office market in all of Arizona. So to be able to bring some maybe affordable creative workspace that talks to where Tempe is today in the innovation economy, it might be a neat mix to create. Those entrepreneurs tend to bring energy to sites. So I think that's something we're exploring as well.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
that's helpful. I think that's mostly what my thoughts were at this point. So again, just one last chance if there's anyone else that had any questions.
I'm sorry. I do have one last, I want to close it out if that's okay.
Please.
As you can see, again, we do not have a lot of structure. I mean, what we're bringing you today more than anything are the terms for the development agreement. So I think it's plain to say that we're going to be back numerous times because, as we get ready for the site cleanup and the rehabilitation of the trailhead, we do want to make sure that you see all of that before it happens. I know that this commission has already seen plans for that, and that's something that is very important to us. That's why it's in the phase one. But again, you need to see it. So we will be back when it's time, when we're ready to do the work. There's all of these pieces in play that we're working on. But so we will be back definitely the next time to tell you about that. And then, of course, as we get through the historic preservation and the concepts become more defined, let's say. So we'll be back numerous times.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah.
All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Chair Woodson, there is a question on the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, get them.
Okay.
Thought you were going to get away.
Well, does Commissioner Garrity, does he have a question, or is he?
No, it's someone else. It's not a commission.
Oh, okay, very well, yes. Can you tune them in if you can? I'm not sure how we do that.
It's not a name.
Morning Star Balloon, is that a?
Yeah, I unmuted them, but they muted themselves back. It
Oh.
says, what do you mean by hospitality? A hotel on the site?
No hotel. No, really food and beverage. maybe there's educational about Tempe, arts and culture, a visitor center to the trailhead, or, we haven't even explored the possibilities with the four southern tribes. Maybe they want to have presence of different aspects. So we've started to broach on that a little bit. So yeah, no, there's no housing, there's no hotel, there's plenty around us. There's going to be one across the street, there's plenty downtown, the Omni, and all the big hotels. We want this to be a destination that people want to come to. It's really an activated public park.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
great.
Right.
Hope that
All
helps.
right, thank you
Great,
again.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, update on the RFQ process for the redevelopment of the Gonzalez Martinez House property and the adjacent parcel to the west, both located near the intersection of First Street and Farmer Avenue. Presenter is Maria Lochner, coming back our way. Oh, yeah,
I'm good. All right.
okay, welcome back.
Happy to be back. All right. Oh yeah. So I do not have a presentation for you today like this because I don't really have that much to report, but I just wanted to make sure that we were touching base with you since this seems to be starting. That being said, I know in my memo, I had said that we would have had one meeting with the developer. That has not happened yet. So I don't have anything to say about that, but I can give you a little bit more background about what has occurred here. I know that you have had a robust discussion previously about this, and I think we all realize that Zach was very successful in getting some grants to help with the stabilization, and we're hoping that that's going to get started very soon. We're trying to work on timeline, but it depends on how we can get people and such, but that's the first thing. But as it relates to the actual site, as you know, a few years ago was when we were able to, say that the city site is city site, and then the state land site is the state land site. When that happened back in 2020, when that was finalized, our attorneys tried to work with state land to see, can we get something going here so that we can acquire your piece as well? We were not successful. They are, they do things the way they do them. I don't want to, I don't want to disparage anybody, but we were not successful in those discussions with state lands. And then we found out, much to our surprise, at the first week of November, that state land was auctioning their land. Thought, okay, that's great. I wish we would have known that beforehand. But they auctioned it, and the starting bid was $2.75 million for land that's a little under an acre. So there was a successful bidder, and that bidder is the same development team that is building Farmer Arts that goes from university to where the culinary dropout is right now, just south of this site. And their idea is to combine their site, which is now the state land site, with the city site. They also own where the lodge is, which is immediately west on the other side of Farmer. And they're looking to build a 400-unit, a high-rise mixed-use project with restaurants down below. So when they finalized that purchase, they requested through council that the city issue an RFP so that they could work on their development. Our city agreed to do that, and we did issue an RFQ. I apologize, not an RFP, an RFQ on January 11th, and it was on the street for 2 weeks. And council at that time had identified that the criteria for the RFQ would consist of only near adjacent property owners could apply. We would prefer a mixed income residential project with ground floor commercial. The city's property would have to be purchased at the appraised market value. We being the city council, require that the Gonzalez Martinez house be retained and incorporated into the project according to preservation standards, and also allowed to utilize the grant funding that we had secured through our Historic Preservation Office. And then the developer has to sign on to the streetcar agreement and add a pedestrian link to Tempe Town Lake. And we wanted them to be able to execute quickly. The purpose for that one is so that no one sits on the land for a long period of time. That's a new thing that we're doing. So we did receive the one proposal, and it was from the same people that the development team for Farmer Arts. And the council awarded the RFQ to them on February 16th. So to this, as of today, we have not had a single meeting with them. Everyone's busy, and now it's spring break and such. But our goal in working with the Historic Preservation Office and planning is to retain on-site and preserve the Gonzalez Martinez house because of its significance to the community. I can't really speak as to what the development plans are, because as an RFQ and not an RFP, they did not have to submit any site plans. So the part that I told you where it's high rise with 400 units, that was in narrative form. So I don't really know what that can look like, but that is something that is that's the first thing that has to be discussed as far as this project goes, because that is a very important component of the project. And interestingly enough, we specified the Gonzalez Martinez house, but there are other components. I mean, they're not really sites, right? But components to the historic site that, some cross, I think maybe you can speak to it.
Outbuildings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you call them?
Outbuildings.
Just other
Yeah,
outbuildings,
yeah,
okay. Like one that crosses a property line. There are other, and, just to be fair, I mean, I'm only talking about the Gonzalez Martinez house now, but this site has a lot of hair on it. There's like the Maricopa County Assessor's site doesn't have the same boundaries as the State Lands Department, and we're trying to figure out an Alta and all of this. So I can't even do an appraisal yet because none of that has been worked out. So we need a survey and all this stuff. And I don't know that any of that's been done yet, but it is making people go crazy. Did you have something you wanted to say, Commissioner Fackler? I'm sorry. I can see it in his face.
Vice Chair.
One thing about it, this $2.75 million purchase of the property directly adjacent establishes a nice comp for the city's land. So it will be interesting how that plays out.
Agreed.
But one quick question as you were giving this presentation that popped into my head is, they've asked the city to sell their land. Does that include the house site? Or will the city retain ownership of the house?
So one of the things, no, it's not listed here, I apologize. One of the things we would be looking at would be that we would get a carve out of where that site is so we can hold on to that into perpetuity and make sure that there's a facade and conservation easement as part of it. That's something that we would be requesting. Again, we haven't had any of those conversations, so I don't want to presume, but that is where we are. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think we should definitely consider, doing a carve out for it to maintain city ownership of the house itself.
Really don't want to see a facade easement.
Okay, oh yeah, so yes, I think yes,
Easement versus fee title ownership, two
yes,
totally different
yeah.
things. So,
right.
I'd hate to see you come back and say, yeah, we're going to sell the whole thing to them, but we'll hold back a facade easement. That's not, I know what this commission is looking for, so.
Okay, I just want to write that down word for word. Okay, thank you for that. I would like to ask, what's other input I mean, we're very early on in this. We haven't even had the first meeting, so I would really appreciate any input that could be
Have one
provided.
Follow-up question.
Hold on, Vice Chair. Thank you, Ms. Loeffner. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you were done with your presentation
Yeah, I am. Yeah,
first.
I didn't really have a lot of presentation. I'm here for questions more
Very
than
good.
or
Okay,
comments.
yes. Vice Chair.
You've talked about or around the developer.
Mhm.
I'd like to know who the developer is and who their legal counsel is. I've heard it's Hugh Mantle.
That is correct.
Okay.
And he's also the developer. So
yes.
Hugh Mantle and Todd Marshall are the ones that are behind
Know 'em both.
First and Farmer LLC is the name of the LLC.
Okay, thank you.
And they also did all of the south. So they're looking to continue, complete the Farmer Arts District is their goal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Let me first ask if any other commissioners have any questions.
I have a question, and this may reflect my limited understanding, but you said that the auction was restricted to only entities surrounding? No?
No, that was our RFQ. The city's RFQ was restricted to adjacent property owners. The auction was open to anybody.
Okay, okay. Can you tell me why you do it that way, that it's only open to,
Adjacent property owners. Because
Sorry.
if you, I don't have shoot, I should have given you a map. That would have been good. If you look at the site, there are two really long, narrow parcels. So it's really hard to do something with just one. So if we were to sell our parcel just as it is, there would be very limited opportunity to do something there. Whereas if you combine with the adjacent property owner, it does allow for greater connectivity and planning, et cetera.
okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's something that we often do to make a better parcel.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further
No,
questions?
thanks.
Okay, other commissioners, any questions? I have some questions.
That's what I'm here for.
So, did you listen to the discussion that we had at our last meeting, or did you read the minutes?
I skimmed the minutes and I heard some of it from Dr. Lechner.
Okay. So I'd like to know, did any of the other commissions hear about this sale or the RFQ before this last meeting we had? Or was this just no other commission or entity was able
No,
to?
nobody. It was very fast.
So, I mean, I'm still, I mean, again, it's done. It's a done deal. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, but I mean, I'm still pretty flabbergasted by the way the state handled this. And I don't know who we've got in the city that deals with the state land department. You know, is that your department?
It actually isn't. Our city attorney is the one that was dealing with it,
Okay.
with them, I should say.
And did he have any insight into how this happened?
No, she was equally
Or
surprised.
she? Okay. That was it? They had no idea? There was no speculation about why now and et cetera, et cetera? Okay, well, I mean, it all seems very, fishy to me that just all of a sudden this, and then all of a sudden the city just decides, oh, we're going to turn around in like a week and issue an RFQ that only the owner of the property parcel directly west can bid on. So, I mean, it all sounds very fishy, so that was kind of a little bit of the substance of the discussion at the last point. So, I mean, from my point of view, and I think for the commission, this is one of the only properties left in the whole city that's from that vintage era of the 1880s. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it might be the second oldest building right now. So, again, I mean, to me, this should have been on everybody's radar in the city. So, and I'm not saying it wasn't, because again, I was really disappointed that we couldn't focus last month on the great effort that Dr. Lechner did in getting these grants and the
Yeah.
additional monies for the rehabilitation. So, I mean, that's outstanding in and of itself, but this whole thing has just kind of gotten subsumed in my mind by this whole, you know, I'm not going to call it a controversy yet, but it is definitely kind of a looming issue in my mind for this property. And I'm still far from feeling comfortable about where this is headed ultimately. I see some potential good outcomes, you know, and I'm glad that it sounds like you and Zach and others, I mean, obviously I hear you, what you're saying, and I hear that it's going to be going into a development agreement, but I mean, that hasn't been done yet, and et cetera, you know, so there's still quite a few hurdles to get over with this process. And so I'm still quite concerned. I mean, we could put in $1 million into rehabilitating this house, and it's still, to me, doesn't seem like we have been assured, or we have legally been assured that this property is going to remain intact, accessible to the public, and the way that it really ought to be. And again, I'm not trying to say that this whole thing should have just been bought for however many millions of dollars and just to do like an Elias Rodriguez style museum. So I get the point. I get the balance that you have to do here. So I'm not arguing with that, but it's just, you know, from my point of view, I just want to impress upon you, Dr. Lechner, and anyone else, the city attorney, that it's very concerning. We would like to make sure that the city does everything they can to make sure that this building is preserved, and not just preserved, but in a tasteful way that meets the city's criteria, which I would hope would be input by the commission. I mean, we didn't even have a chance to even think about this, much less comment, and all this stuff happened in between the last meeting that we had because we didn't have any agenda items. And I'm not laying blame on that or anything like that, but I just want to make sure that I reiterate that point of view so that everybody in the cities who's actually dealing with this kind of understands that, and that we just feel like this is a pretty critically important from a historic preservation point of view, and we'd really like to make sure that, please, just to do everything you can, you know, to kind of really make sure that that gets forced into this whatever agreement, you know, comes about with this. Does that make sense? Do you understand?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I'm here too. I do want to, if it eases your mind at all, I mean, it came up fast for us too, to be very honest. We don't move that super fast. I mean, I like to think I do, but not really, never this fast. But, you know, when that purchase was made, and then typically what happens for us for RFPs, RFQs is someone approaches the city with an idea. And then we look at that and we're like, oh, that might be interesting. And then we can issue an RFQ related to, you know, well, council issues the RFQ. They tell us what they want. And that's typically how it happens. So with this one, when it came up, we thought, and, you know, Zach was involved at the very beginning, when, you know, back in January, we thought maybe this is a way to help us with the preservation. So maybe this is a way to do something finally here, because our hands have been tied and et cetera. And now we do have like the foundation, at least in terms of grants, for doing some of that stabilization work, doing some of that preliminary work that we've been wanting to do for a long time. So hopefully, you know, we're all very positive people. So hopefully this is an opportunity to work with someone who can make that a reality, you know, do the preservation, make it tasteful, make it usable, not blighted, not, you know, what some of the issues that we've had recently with, you know, break-ins and homelessness. And, you know, if we can activate it, all of that can help it. So that is, I would say, like our umbrella goal. How do we make this what it should be? You know, no longer on the list of these are the things we need to do, but on the list of we have rehabilitated, preserved, and have, you know, are using this house where the public can go there and enjoy it and understand a little bit about Tempe's history. That is our goal. And obviously Zach is on our team to do these discussions. And our council is very serious about the conservation and preservation as well of the house. So that was the biggest part of that discussion when we met in executive session. So I do believe that is what we're all going for. And we will be coming back to you with the developer if we can get over, you know, how this development can occur. once that part, because again, we haven't had one meeting yet, it's hard to say. I don't know where we are yet because we haven't started. But once we've started, I do want to bring them back and talk to you and listen to you about what your vision is for the site.
Okay, yes, understood. Thank you for that. Two other things, and I'll get to you, Vice Chair. So are there other state land parcels within the city boundary that potentially could be up for auction at some point in the future?
I don't know.
Okay, I mean,
That's-
and not
yeah.
that there would be, I mean, I doubt it would be something that would be of this import as far as historic preservation, but just as a suggestion, maybe you get the city attorney to send the state land department a letter and to say, hey, you're going to decide to put this up on auction. Would you mind giving us a heads up so that we have some idea about this? I mean, that just doesn't seem like it's just basic, simple courtesy, but
Yeah.
I look, I've dealt with state land department myself many times, so I understand that that's not necessarily what's
Yeah.
at the top of their list, is common courtesies to the other municipalities. So I get it, but I'm just throwing that out there as a suggestion that you all might just throw that idea over to the city attorney's office. And then the second thing I just want to just ask one more time, just to be clear, could you just explain again why this RFQ had to happen so fast? I mean, why? I mean, is that normal for something like this to happen or not?
This developer had requested that we move as quickly as possible.
And and what? I mean, so who's in charge of doing RFQs with the city? Isn't that your department?
Yes, it is.
So why? I mean,
We-
I
we're-
just, I mean, if someone asks that for an expedited RFQ, do you always do it, or how is that usually handled?
Sometimes, I would say sometimes, it depends on the situation.
Okay.
But this
and-
one, council directed us to issue it as soon as possible, so we did.
Oh, so council got involved before you all could even
Oh,
consider?
absolutely. We cannot issue an RFQ until council authorizes us.
Okay. And did they tell you to do it right away?
They asked us to go as fast as possible.
Okay. And they knew about this property on there, the Gonzalez Martinez house?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
right.
that's where I was saying the conversation
Yeah.
that we had with council was mostly about the Gonzalez Martinez house.
And again, and I'm not trying to beat a horse to death, but maybe you think I am. But again,
No, I know it's hard to
given the
understand
import
our
of this
processes
property, I mean,
sometimes.
did anybody voice up that, hey, maybe we ought to slow down a little bit here and think this through just a little bit? I mean, did anybody have that kind of discussion in part of your executive session? And I know you can't tell me exactly what happened, but did anybody even say something to that extent? Or wait, maybe we should wait a little while and think this through a little bit?
Yeah, that was voiced.
Well, I mean, it's just a yes or no question. I mean, did anybody even suggest it?
She can't say that.
Why not? Yes or no that something may or may not have happened?
And the next question would be even more leading than that. And
Okay, well, very good. If that's the case, then I apologize and I'll withdraw the question. All right,
But I got one follow-up.
you have a follow-up, so please proceed, Vice Chair.
Having spent decades working with the State Lands Department on this piece of property, see here that the auction was held on November 22nd.
That's correct.
When was it advertised?
I don't know. I know we found out about it the first week of November. So I don't know when it was advertised on the website.
Was there ever any discussion by the city of putting in a bid?
We did not have time to respond.
Okay.
And when we saw the beginning bid price was 2.75, we knew that we talked to our finance department and there was not available funds at the time.
One of the things you might follow up with the city, chair asked whether or not there were other properties or that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I looked, all of the right-of-ways west of the railroad tracks were still owned by the state as part of the original deeding of that property to the school district is how the state got ownership in that area to
Mhm.
begin with. I don't know whether those have ever been cleaned up or not. But it's probably something that needs to be done.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Thank you very much.
But I agree with the chair on this timing of this. And I understand the mechanics of it, having done it a number of times. I quite frankly never put out an RFP or an RFQ that I didn't know I was going to have at least one submittal to, that I knew somebody was interested in the site. And I understand the political pressure that can be brought to bear on staff when a prominent development group who has already shown a good track record for development in the area asks the council, and it only takes one to be asked and four to make a decision. But it really does put a nasty taste in the mouth when this commission and the city staff especially, have spent literally years trying to put this thing together, and bam, within a month's time, the whole view of how this property is going to get developed by who and what buildings are going to be saved or not saved are decided. My final question to you, if you will, is as this moves forward, you finally do start some negotiations. I'm assuming that you will be bringing back the deal points, just like you did on the flour mill tonight,
Absolutely.
in whatever form. Because obviously we're going to be looking at this with a microscope as it relates to this building. And
Understood.
you know, having access to a building that you can't access doesn't make this a workable solution.
Correct.
Only good thing about it, it is tucked off in the corner of the site, can be isolated, but it can't be too isolated. You have to have good, reasonable, understandable access to this site. And as we talked about in the flour mill, while the building itself would be problematic to activate, the surroundings and how this building interacts with the restaurant, especially on the ground floor of this new building, would help to activate and help preserve that building. The other thing that still bothers me is, yeah, we haven't seen any concept plans, but like a good developer always will, he nailed down the intensity of development of 400 units. I have no idea whether or not 400 units and obviously the 700 or 800 parking spaces associated with those units would even fit on the site, let alone how it would impact the adjacent historic structure. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks.
You're welcome. And I have to say, yes, we are going to come back as soon as we have something. I just didn't want to wait until then because we're already here tonight for the flour mill. And I see this project as, you know, like not the same as the flour mill, but it should follow the same timeline in terms of coming to you, presenting ideas, getting input as we are trying to do negotiations. So,
Very good, thank you. One other just question, and again, apologize for the grilling nature of the questions, but you keep talking about this farmer arts redevelopment. And maybe this is not the time to do that, but how does this parcel fit into that, and what even is that? I don't even know what that is.
so farmer
We need to know about
arts-
that? I mean,
no, it's it's a kind of a misnomer. It's just that was what they called the area because of Farmer Avenue. And actually, Commissioner Fackler or Ambika might know the origin of the arts part of it. That predates my tenure. But it is the area along Farmer from University, right now ending at First Street where the Culinary Dropout is. And it currently consists of some apartments, the Vibe Hotel, the Beam office space, a parking garage, and the Culinary Dropout. So this is the same development team who did that, and they're looking at, they see that as their project running that that distance or length, and then this part would cap it, would be kind of like the end cap on the north.
Okay, I see.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, maybe when you come back next time, you could maybe, I don't know if there's illustrations or something that explain this better. I don't know. I'm just
Yes,
asking
no,
'cause I don't know
definitely. I
anything
would like
about
to do that.
So if it's part of that, that might be useful to know. And my last question is, and you did say something about splitting the parcel somehow. I'm not sure exactly what the mechanics would be of that. I mean, is that something that the city would even entertain at this point? As actually, did I hear that correctly? That the south end of the city parcel with the building,
Mm-hmm. We could.
would you split that out and retain that as city property? And I didn't, could you explain that again?
Yes, that would be the ultimate goal, would be through a new survey, we could replat it and get the parcel that is where the house is or whatever components are going to be included in terms of the outbuildings. And that can be, we can retain ownership of that. So we would not be selling that part. And then the
Okay.
appraisal would, subtract that
Okay.
from the lot.
I see. All right,
And we would entertain doing that, absolutely.
great. Okay, very good.
Something like what we tried in the Gray House, Gray Butler House.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, with the Butler House, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, very good. All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none, we very much appreciate your update, and we definitely look forward to hearing more in the future.
No, you're welcome, and I look forward to coming back.
Thank you. Okay, I think that concludes, the substantive agenda items. So now we're on to item 6, chair staff updates. I don't really have any updates per se, other than to mention that I think the Hayden's Ferry Days Festival was useful. Oh, it looks like you already have something queued up, so maybe I'll let you.
I figured that you would talk about it, so I wanted to have some
think everybody
visuals.
on the commission understands or knew about this, and 4 of us did participate. And thank you again, Dr. Lechner, for preparing the items, and also to your staff for bringing it out for us, and also to Logan Simpson and Chris Garrity's outfit for putting together the other items. So yeah, I thought it went well and was a useful exercise, and we got, as I said, we got feedback that was kind of equal parts great and equal parts kind of like complaints and curmudgeonly kind of, feedback. But, hey, I mean, that's part of what we do, and I understand that, and I get the same thing myself in my own line of work, so I kind of feel how it goes. But anyway, that's really my only update to add.
Okay. Yeah, and thanks to you, Chair and Vice Chair, and Commissioners Montero and Kuroka for coming out to staff that table. So we appreciate you having you there. So thank you.
Okay, any
I
other
will-
staff updates?
Yeah, just a few. So the blanket historic properties treatment plan and cultural resource inventory that's being completed by Logan, speaking of Logan Simpson, for the city. A draft of that was completed. I've had a chance to give it a first pass and review. It's currently, I guess it was under review by Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, as well as Gila River Indian Community. They had some requested revisions, which Logan Simpson has told me they just finished making today. So I'll be sending that back out to SRPMIC and GRIC as well, and to see if those changes are adequate. And then once I have a new draft from Logan Simpson, I'll make a request for, well, not make a request, but I'll make sure that the commission receives a copy of that report and have a chance to put that as an agenda item on an upcoming commission meeting. Because that's really a useful document, and it will govern essentially how in the future how archaeological activities are conducted in the city, particularly those involving public undertakings or those that are city projects. Did anybody have any questions about that? Or?
No, but I really look forward to reading it.
Yeah. I think you'll be pleased.
We're starting our own citywide updated treatment plan.
Oh yes, in Phoenix. Yeah, I think you'll be pleased. It's a good document. So we'll look forward to your input on that. Secondly, the Historic Preservation Award, which is part of the neighborhood awards, which I talked to you about, contacted you about. It was advertised on the city website and social media. Nominations closed on February 15th. No nominations were submitted, so there will be no HP award. But as I told you last time, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, as I'd rather have no nominations than not terribly good nominations. So that's fine. Maybe we'll have something for next year. I did just want to remind you though that the 2023 neighborhood celebration event is set for Saturday, April 1st. The event runs from 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning with a 9 a.m. awards ceremony. And so Neighborhood Services just wanted me to pass along the invitation to encourage commissioners to attend. So feel free to attend to represent the commission. Totally optional, of course, but Neighborhood Services would love to have you there. So again, Saturday, April 1st, 8:30 to 8:30 to 10:30, 9 a.m. awards ceremony. And then finally, I just want to mention, give an update about the expiration of some HPC members' terms and some new incoming members. So first of all, I just want to thank Jim Garrison, Chris Garrity, and Liz Gilbert, all three at-large members who will be rotating off the commission at the end of this month. Commissioner Garrison served 2 consecutive terms. Commissioner Garrity served 2 consecutive terms, and Commissioner Gilbert served 1 term. And I just want to say we appreciate all of their hard work and their service over the years, and we hope to have the chance to interact with them on HP-related issues in the future. So just want to give them a big thanks. I know only Commissioner Garrity is with us here this evening, but they've all done a lot of great work, and we greatly appreciate it. So thank you to them.
Absolutely. Just say thank you again. And I do see Commissioner Gilbert's online too. So
Oh, she is here. Okay. Okay, very good.
So thank you all very much, and don't be a stranger. You can come back and watch the meetings in the future.
Well,
And volunteer at Hayden Ferry Days.
That's right. And potentially could serve again on the commission. That's not prohibited. So it could happen. So let us know if you're still interested. Okay, so just quickly, I just want to mention. So at a recent meeting of City Council, its March 2nd meeting, Council approved my resolution to stagger the new at-large members' terms, which I talked to you about last time. I had mentioned that I was going to be proposing, just so you know, just to kind of close this loop. It's kind of a minor detail, but I had mentioned that I was going to be requesting down the road an ordinance change to, in the future, just kind of be able to stagger, commissioners, incoming commissioners' terms, if need be, just to avoid this kind of situation of having 5 commissioners' terms end at the same time. The city attorney said I couldn't do that. So, so it would disempower council and the mayor too much. So, anyway, we won't be doing that. But this little change that we're making now should, at least in the coming year, should mean that we will just have, if we have any untimely resignations, we'll just have 3 commissioners rotating off each year, which I think is a third of the commission rather than more than half the commission. I think it's a more manageable number. I think we all would agree with that. So after consultation with Chair Woodson, I put forward the names of 3 individuals to fill the at-large members slots. Those folks who are leaving the commission as of March 31st, as I mentioned at the top. And I want to wait until those are, assuming those will be approved by council, but I want to make sure that those are approved by council before, I kind of provide you with information on them. So look for more information on them at the next meeting, which they will be at. So it'll be their first meeting. So once pending approval from council here in about a week, they'll be on the commission. I will be doing some orientation with them prior to the first meeting, so they should be rearing and ready to go as of the April 19th meeting. So, and that is the next meeting, by the way. That's a little bit of a change of a date, just I think due to some holidays and things. So, and maybe some conflicts with other commissions. Be that as it may, that's the reason the next month's meeting is not going to be the second week of April as it normally would be. So, but those are the only other staff updates that I have.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to number 7, current events, announcements, and future agenda items from commission members. Anyone have any announcements?
I do have an announcement. So Pueblo Grande Museum, maybe most of you know this, but we're city-owned and run museum under the Parks and Recreation Department. And we've been working closely with the tribes, with Salt River and Gila River Indian communities for a while now, and talking about renaming the museum. And the Parks Board actually voted yes on us renaming the museum to better reflect its cultural connections with the O'odham people. I'm going to say the name, but it's going to go before the board one more time, because we weren't sure if we were going to use the English translation or the O'odham words, and we would like to use the O'odham words. And maybe I should make Ray Lynn say it, but I'll try, and then you can correct me. Sodov Va'aki. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Sedev, and Va'aki, meaning central
Platform.
House or platform mound.
Thank you. So I think at our next meeting, we're going to record each one of you saying it and save it so that we can all practice. But we're real excited about it. And I just wanted to let you guys know there will be a press release on March 24th. And then we'll roll out, the timeline for how we're going to start changing things.
Great, thank you very much. So I think that's about 1 century after the park was actually formed, correct?
Yeah, 1924.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other announcements from you or anyone else? Any other announcements from members? All right, hearing none, staff announcements.
Yeah, I just want to give you an update on the April meeting. So 2 items so far. One you already know about, which is the HPC consideration of whether to recommend approval of the zoning map amendment or to place a historic overlay on 135 East Bonita Way. So that's obviously the property that we had a neighborhood meeting on at the last HPC meeting, as you recall. And then there's just another item that's has just recently been put on the agenda. There's a proposed redevelopment project that involves the First Congregational Church, just kind of down the road and a block back, as well as the Walker House. First Congregational Church is a Tempe historic property registered designated property. The Walker House is a National Register listed property. And so a developer wants to come in and redevelop that land. And so economic development will be here to be on hand to discuss that, and hopefully, although we'll still have to determine that, the developer to talk about that as well. So kind of we'll see how that goes, but that's want to get you in early on the discussion for that.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements from staff? Nope.
No, that is all.
Okay. All right, very well. I believe that concludes the meeting, so I think I'll just call the meeting to adjourn here at 7:36. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening and a good spring break for those of you who take spring break. And sorry, the next meeting is April what?
April 19th.
April 19th. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you.